Welcome once again to SoCo Chat, a podcast where we hear directly from county leaders, discuss the latest news, and talk about all things concerning our beautiful corner of California known as Sonoma County. Welcome back to SoCo Chat. I'm your host once again, Paul Gullickson, Communications Manager for the County of Sonoma. We thank you for joining us. Our topic today is a difficult but important subject because it's one of the few domestic issues that we don't really talk about very much, at least not publicly, and that is the issue of domestic abuse. Helping us with that discussion today is Madeleine Keegan O'Connell, Chief Executive Officer of the YWCA of Sonoma County. Madeleine, thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, we are
Paul.
old friends, and I appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it.
Sure.
You shared some numbers with us that I still find hard to believe, and that is roughly 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men, and nearly half of LGBTQ residents will experience sexual violence, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner during their lifetimes.
That's correct.
Are these I assume these are national numbers, but is this similar to what we're seeing in Sonoma County?
You know, we consider these numbers to be both nationally and locally,
Okay.
Paul.
Okay.
And it's interesting. Oftentimes people want to chat with me about the statistics. Let's just agree it's a lot of people you and I both know.
Right. And we don't realize how prevalent
That's
it is.
correct.
Yeah.
Right. So consider the number of people of contacts you have through your neighborhood, your children's school, your faith community, or your professional network. How many contacts do you have on LinkedIn or in your computer with your emails? Domestic violence is the thing that the abuser certainly doesn't want you to know about.
Right. Yeah.
The victim has been groomed, sort of trained over time to keep it hidden. And so I'm here to let everybody know if they experience it, they need to call us.
Yeah. Well, it exists. Well, let's back up a minute. For the past 12 years, you have been CEO of the YWCA of Sonoma County.
Yes, I have.
Tell us, what is the primary focus of the YWCA?
Well, you know, we were established in 1976, Paul, by a group of community members that noticed that women and children were sleeping in their cars, and they wanted to understand why. Now, fast forward to 2024, we have a lot of our population sleeping in cars for a variety of reasons, but the main mission was to establish domestic violence services here in Sonoma County. So we're deeply rooted in domestic violence services. We actually have 3 pillars of our programming. Early on in our history, we created child care centers. Now we've grown that to 6
Oh, my gosh.
child care centers. And then the third pillar that I consider the glue is our therapy services, counseling support.
Okay. We're going to get into each of these in a minute, but I first want to just so you you're known as the YWCA, but you don't. It's not just women you support. You support men as well, correct?
Oh my goodness, yes. We're associated with YWCA USA and YWCA World, which are national and global organizations interested in the welfare of women and children. But as you just stated with those statistics, it's sort of evolved, right? So men are victims of domestic violence, Paul, and men are welcome to have the services of the YWCA and often do come to us for help.
Yeah, well, as with all victims, it's sometimes very hard to come forward and to talk about that. So
You're right.
Well, before we go farther, you have a hotline number, and I don't want to wait to the end to give it to people,
please.
because if this is the subject is already resonating with some of our listeners,
Right.
I feel it's important to give it to them. What is the hotline number, and why is it so special?
Sure. Well, it's in the 707 area code, of course. And way back in 1976, it was established as 546-1234. Very easy number to remember, memorize, and help other people learn what that number is. Again, 546-1234. And we answer that line, Paul, 24/7.
Well, and for those outside of our area, that's 707-546-1234. We'll remind you at the end, but important number to remember. Yes. And that is how many calls you receive? You receive quite a number, right?
We do. 3,000-ish per year.
Oh, my gosh.
But I will tell you that we all remember the pandemic year, right? 2020. In 2021, think about that in terms of the timeline of our community in the last few years. Calls to the crisis hotline, Paul, went up 46%.
Oh, my gosh.
Colossal. And what was happening was families were struggling with that concept of Remember the
Hmm.
COVID, and was it safe to go out? Well, then I'm going to hunker down at home. And the stressors and the tensions built even more
Right.
rapidly. So the calls that we received, Paul, regrettably had greater injury
Oh.
and violence. And we were there to answer those calls, and we will continue to be.
I suppose you probably see trends along those lines, like
We
when the
do.
economy goes down or there's some natural, disaster. Some of these things probably add to it too, don't
You're
they?
right. So fires,
Yeah.
wildfires in our
Right.
community. Families tend to hunker down or stay together as a unit, even during the loss of a home.
Hmm.
But then, yes, YWCA will see an uptick rather in calls
Mm.
and outreach to us for support during the months that follow a significant experience.
Well,
Yeah,
we've had no shortage of stressful events in
that's
our
correct.
areas over the last several
Mm-hmm.
decade.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about specifically about some of the services you provide when somebody does call that hotline number. First of all, you provide a safe house, correct? Tell
That's
us about
correct.
that.
Right. So, what makes YWCA unique in Sonoma County is our 24/7 crisis hotline that we mentioned. We're the only organization in all of Sonoma County to offer that service to our
Okay.
community. And we answer it from within the walls of a safe house shelter.
Hmm.
It's a refuge for families who are fleeing violence in the place we should all feel the most safe, Paul, which is
Hmm.
inside our own homes. Now, that is in a confidential location,
Hmm.
but it is a 36-bed facility, and it is busy all the time.
And if you call that and you have a situation, you're fleeing a circumstances, you bring them in.
That's
Uh,
correct.
um,
So, our advocates are specially trained in trauma-informed care,
yeah.
empathy, and honestly, just listening and being there
Right.
and without judgment,
Right.
right? And so the talent of that advocate is to assess your danger level,
Right.
create safety planning with you.
Yeah.
And it might be interesting for people to realize that a victim of violence will call a crisis hotline like ours here in Sonoma County 6, 7, 8 times before
Before they're
actually
willing.
making a move. And so
Right.
one of the things that our advocates will offer is a support group.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to just sit in a room with other people who've had a similar circumstance,
Right.
and dissect what domestic violence is,
Yeah.
so that the victims really understand this is an unhealthy place for you to be, and there's a way to change that.
Yeah. Well, when victims finally do make that decision
Hmm.
to flee an abusive situation, many
Hmm.
times, as you noted, they're arriving with children,
Oh,
right?
yes.
And so that's, and as you said, you provide childcare, right? Tell us about what you other services you
We
provide.
do. I want people to know that the Safe House Shelter is a welcoming environment for
Yeah.
children. It's specifically designed like a home to welcome children. YWCA's mission from very early on was to create a therapeutic
Mm.
preschool. And this is unusual in our community. We're the only one.
Hmm.
We're one of only a handful in the entire state of California where we have our on site counselors
Hmm.
able to provide therapy and counseling to children as young as 3, 4, 5 years old, Paul.
Right.
Hmm.
And that's so important because people often don't realize how much trauma a child is experiencing when they
Exactly.
see their mother or father in
Exactly.
a situation like that.
Because those people who love them most and best,
Yeah.
displaying behaviors and activities that are contrary to what that love is intended to be,
Right.
and that can have a serious impact.
Well, especially down the road, you want to break that cycle,
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We'll talk a little bit more about that. Well, let's talk about it now. You have written about the recently released movie "It Ends with Us,"
Right.
starring Blake Lively, which also was a best-selling book. It's about domestic violence, and without going into too much detail here,
Sure.
this is a movie. Some critics have noted that might help explain why a person in an abusive relationship might have such a difficult time leaving that relationship.
That's
But
correct.
in this case, ultimately, the main character does
Hmm.
leave.
Hmm.
I guess my question to you is, why do you think this movie and book have touched so many people, including yourself? You've written
Hmm.
about it.
Hmm. Boy, I have to tell you that October is Domestic Violence
Of
Awareness Month.
course. Yeah.
And I've been so privileged to have a close to home article published by the Press Democrat nearly every year of my career
Well
here.
done.
And there's always material. Isn't
Hmm.
that sad?
Yeah.
There's always something in popular culture which leads us to consider domestic violence and the
Hmm.
impact it has on, in this case, they're not exactly fictional characters. The author of It Ends With Us lived in a domestic violence household, and she took this opportunity in her skill in writing and storytelling to bring that story to light.
Yeah.
I mean, the book sold 800 million copies
Oh
or
my
something,
gosh.
and it's they
They
hired
hit a chord.
great,
Yeah.
great actors and actresses. And yet, yes, you're correct. I often have conversations with community members who come to me and say, "But why don't they just leave?" And so you're right. This kind of a story played out in a movie is helpful, honestly, so that people understand how complicated it is.
Right.
And in the author's own upbringing, it had to do with children.
Yeah.
And so who understands that best? The advocates at the YWCA understand, and our counselors certainly see the dynamics in a family, and we're here to help with that.
Explain where the title of the movie comes from. There's a scene in which the mom looks at her child, right? Explain that.
Well, she's making a commitment to her infant child that it ends with us. The cycle of abuse that she will not allow her child to continue to live in
Yeah.
a situation like this or to be exposed to a situation like this. So I do invite your viewers and your listeners to take a look at our website, YWCASC, that stands for Sonoma County.org. And we have a video there. I'm very interested in the integrity of how we present our programming. So every person you see on that video is truly a YWCA client. And there's one particular mom I want your viewers to get to know best because she came to us with young children. And I now know those children. I met them 12 years ago when they were teenagers, and now they're adults. And they really have taken a deep dive through therapy, through counseling, and through writing. They've written their stories as a cathartic way to take apart that episode in their life and understand it, and so that they can go on to live happier, healthier lives.
Yeah. Well, what a brave move to take that step to break that cycle.
Absolutely.
And that
It
really
ends with
reflects
us.
that. It
Those are
ends with
immortal words. You know?
Right. And
Right.
so remind us the website again where people can
Absolutely.
see that.
Sure. It's YWCASC. That stands for Sonoma County.org.
Yeah. Well, you do have a number of success stories about the people you've helped in this community over the years. And I know you try to share those stories as much as you can.
I do.
But tell us a little more about some of the success stories you've had.
I'd love to.
And I know you've kept relationships with many of
I
these women.
do. Particularly when their stories are so compelling that they allow us to film them or interview them or have them live at a fundraiser or something like that. I'm very respectful about their trauma
Boundaries.
and their boundaries, certainly. But there is a young woman that comes to mind, and she was in a local hospital having her third baby, and her mom and her sister met her in the recovery room and said, in a sense, Paul, it ends with us, right? We're not allowing you to go back to that household. This is the phone number to call, 546-1234. And she did. And that's sort of a tough love moment, right? That's an expression in our culture that a family would intervene and say, listen, you have a preschool boy, you have a toddler boy, and now you have an infant girl, and we're not allowing this. So she did move in with us. And the key to her success, and you can see this on the video on our website, was the counseling, was to have someone come to our safe house shelter and sit with her and her children, who, by the way, are thriving now because they've learned to understand what real love is and what real love does not look like.
Yeah.
So she's a success.
Well, that's a wonderful story. Well, it also illustrates how much people leaving abusive situations need support, whether it's family or people like yourself, you know, who are organizations out there, and letting them know that they're not alone in this and that they have people out there helping. Well, you have a lot of benefactors helping your organization, YWCA, and they're part of this team, this community that's helping people like that. So we applaud them as well. In addition to being Domestic Abuse Awareness Month, October is also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And if you don't mind, I'd like to mention a personal challenge that you faced. As you've written publicly, you are a survivor of stage 2 breast cancer.
Yes, I am.
But you've also noticed some concerning differences in how willing we are as a society to discuss breast cancer versus domestic violence. Will you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I remember I'm from a large family, and I called one of my brothers to tell him I had this diagnosis. And he said, oh, you got the pretty one. You got the good cancer. He said,
Oh,
"What the heck is that?"
yeah.
It's the pink ribbon,
Yeah.
right? And it's all started with Estee Lauder and the cosmetic industry. And yes, I mean, I'll go into the grocery store and pick up yogurt, and it's got a pink ribbon
Pink
on it.
ribbon right there.
Purple ribbons are
Right.
the symbol of domestic violence, and it's a nod to the Purple Heart that
Mhm.
warriors receive for bravery in battle.
Mm.
And the purple ribbon, in my estimation, is as vital
Mhm.
to our society to understand as the pink ribbon. And I can say that as a
Mhm.
survivor of breast cancer.
Mhm.
Domestic Violence Awareness Month is something that we spend a lot of time communicating with our community
Mhm.
so that people will understand that those statistics, right? We talked about 1 in 4, 1 in 3 women.
Yeah.
Women have a 1 in 8 chance of having breast
Breast
cancer.
cancer.
And so you're right. In the recovery of my illness, I started to consider those stats, and it was
Yeah.
just something I was compelled to write
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. Well,
That's right.
both need our care and attention.
Yes.
And we need to be willing to talk about both.
Yes, we
right?
do.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
thank you for your willingness to do
Of
this.
course. Sure.
How best can listeners and viewers learn more about the issues of domestic violence and
Right.
also how to support the YWCA?
Right. Well, you mentioned benefactors, and in our history since 1976, we're almost 50 years old.
Mm.
Yes, we've had a great deal of support in the community, but I will say that fundraising is down.
Yeah.
And foundation support is down.
Hmm.
The world is a complicated place, and there are a lot of causes. But the route here in Sonoma County for us is to support local families. And so the
Right.
best way you can do that is to support us
Yeah.
by visiting our website, ywcasc.org. I've been told I may advertise.
Yeah. Madeline's
this
holding
upcoming
up a
event.
flyer for an upcoming fundraising event. Tell us about that.
Right. Well, we created this theme back in 2020, Why I Run.
Mhm.
And the question is, why do you support the YWCA?
Mhm.
Often it's because you have a family member or a
Mhm.
friend or a local family that you know that has dealt with domestic violence. And so
Mhm.
we invite you to register, fundraise, and walk with us at Spring Lake on the last Saturday of October. It's our 4th annual Why I Run. It's a walk. It's a beautiful fall day
Mhm.
at Spring Lake. I've been asked the distance. It's 2.2 miles. We really want to see the community come out and support us in this way.
And it's a great way to support the YWCA.
Thank you.
September 26th. It's co-sponsored by Fleet Feet.
Fleet Feet and the County of Sonoma and other sponsors are logging in to support us
And
as
you
well.
have information on your website.
Absolutely.
For that. All
Yep,
right.
you bet.
Well, finally, as we often ask our guests here, our
Mhm.
regulars to know this, I want to ask, what do you like most about your job?
Um, well, you and I have known each other for a long time, and you know that I'm part of the Keegan family,
Mhm.
who's called Sonoma County home for 4 generations,
Mm.
and my roots run deep. And
Mhm.
so, what do I like most about my job is meeting the families that we support and seeing them come into the light. We have a slogan at YWCA Sonoma County, a brand new day, that
Mhm.
every day you can choose to live your life differently.
Mhm.
And so it's important to me. This community is important to me
Mhm.
and has been to my family for generations. So that's the best part of my
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
Seeing
Well,
it in action, seeing it work. Yeah.
Well, you have been a pillar, a supporter. You and your family have been key
Thank you.
members of this community for a long time, and
We're blessed.
we appreciate all you do. Once again, the number for the YWCA's 24-hour crisis hotline is 707 546 1234, 546 1234. This is the only domestic violence hotline in Sonoma County, so save that. And Madeleine, thank you so much for being here. It's an important conversation, and we hope to have you back
My pleasure.
someday. As a thank you gift, we'd
Thank you,
like you
Paul.
to have one of our SoCo Chat
Terrific.
podcast mugs.
All right.
And to our listeners, if you have comments or about this or any other segment, or have a suggestion for a topic for a future SoCo Chat discussion, please email us at publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org. We'd love to hear from you. We thank you all. We hope you continue to follow SoCo Chat on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and YouTube. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Madeleine.